Hi everyone, this one seems to be a continuation of last week's tutorial. So we're just going to move into what we looked at last week and then further. So last week was about e-safety and today we're talking about prevent. So it's challenging extremist ideology. What we're going to do is I'm just going to go through this and then when we meet we'll talk about it and discuss it in full. So for example, there are certain definitions that you need to be clear about. Things like extremism, which is over here, define it. Holding beliefs that most people think are unreasonable and unacceptable. Radicalization is the action or gradual process of making someone become more radical or extreme. Counterterrorism, about action intended to prevent the violence. So those are the three definitions that you really need to be clear about before we start. So do go through them, try and understand them, and then when we come back, we will talk about them at length. So when we're looking at this topic, it's important that we're going to discuss the part about sharing the stories and about preventing extremism, but also things that are going to be important for us to know about dangerous situations. So here it says you're going to hear about powerful accounts from people whose lives have been changed by extremism. So you really do need to be a little bit prepared for this. So this is why I'm giving you this snapshot at the moment, so that you can be clear about that. So let's go into it. Can sharing stories really prevent extremism? Now we need to consider this, and this is a question you need to think about. The topics that we're going to be talking about is going to be stories of violence, extremism, and trauma. So if you have any concerns about it, please can you make sure that you discuss them with me, send me a message so that we can be clear about how we can run this session effectively. It also does say here the final slide for more advice, so they're the similar ones to the ones you saw last week with the links put in the description. But of course, your first port of call should be myself and anybody else at the college who you feel that you can talk to. But do come and speak to me first so that I can make sure that when we're doing this together, I can be helpful in guiding us in the right direction rather than just creating more trauma. So for example, what we're going to do is there are going to be three activities that we're going to do in length together. So stepping in, sharing stories, and shaping a new narrative. There are going to be arguments for and against. And it does say to me, for example, skip the video if it's too short on time, but there won't be a problem with that because you'll get an opportunity to watch the whole thing and be clear. So it says that how Hollyoaks featured a storyline about radicalization and far extremist group. Now this is something that you watched last week in the way of the links that I gave you. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like you to consider these questions when we're going to meet. Okay, what stories did the group tell to make him believe that it's their cause? And then it's got this example highlights how storytelling works both ways. Steve was drawn to extremism by stories that he was told, but in turn the storyline prompted people who were worried about themselves or others to seek help and advice. So again, we're going to take it one step at a time. Do read through, do press pause, have a read of what's going on here, and we will talk about this when we meet. So, for example, one of the things we're going to do is the stepping in. Storytelling should be a form of a key part of strategies that are set up or rolled out by experts to help tackle extremism, but they aren't necessarily enough on their own. So what we're going to do is we're going to be, on the next slide, you're going to see three people's timelines. For this, each one, decide in your pairs which point someone could step in to ensure that the person does not feel as though they should gravitate towards radical outlook. What action could be taken? How could sharing stories help? And if you have time, which we will, share your thoughts with each other and another pair. So I want you to do this for yourself initially, and then when we meet, you're going to be able to share much better because you would have had time to think about it. So for example, you have person A, B, and C. What I would suggest you do is you press pause and you read through each step. So for example, you press pause and you read through moves to an area where their culture is not very well presented, struggles to make friends throughout school, spends more time alone, finds a group at university that shows empathy for their situation, question, 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 question. So I'd like you to read through those, and if we return to the previous slide, remember what we're asking for is, for each one, decide for yourself initially. Here it says in your pair, but initially you're doing this by yourself, at which point somebody could step in to ensure that the person does not feel as though they should gravitate towards a radical outlook. So at what step should they get help? So can somebody step in step 1, in step 2, or step 3? And who might be possible for them to step in and support? It says what action could be taken and how could sharing the stories help? So that's what you'd want to do. You want to think about, could anybody step in? What action could they step in with, and how might that help? Right, moving on to 2. Sharing stories. Sharing stories about our lives and experiences means people get to know who we are. The more we communicate with and get to know each other, the less we're likely that people will move towards extreme ideologies. How true do you think this is? So what we have here is this activity is in 3 parts. You have to look at this table. So I would suggest just creating a 1, 2, 3, and then Travis, Thomas, and John on paper. And then on the right-hand side, or piece of paper with a pen, you have to take notes. So watching the video, you need to think about Travis, Thomas, and John. And what you want to do is you think about what effect has extremism had on their life? Why is it important that they shared their story? And what questions are they asking? What do you think? So this will be here, I believe. Just waiting for that slide page to come up. Ooh. Has it come up? I believe it is there. So we have this one. Okay, so I will share this link when we click on it. This is about Westminster Bridge terror attack that took place on the 22nd of March. This is Travis. And then we move on here with Thomas. This is on Saturday the 3rd of June 2017. This was at London Bridge. We can see the Shard at the back there. This is near Bar Market. And then you've got John, and this is about far extremist groups, for example, the English Defence League. So remember, you're going to be watching the videos, and what you want to do is to write down in your notes, what effect has extremism had on their life? What is the important that why is it important that they shared their story? And what questions are they asked? What do you think? So I would suggest you pause. Now make sure you've got this table in front of you or these questions set out, and then you watch the videos that follows. Now again, there is a warning here, but this is about a warning all the way through, is if this is going to be a subject that's going to be difficult for you to do, you do need to talk to me and we will decide on how we can approach this beforehand. This is why all the tutorial material I'm providing for you ahead of schedule, so that you can discuss and decide on how it's going to work. These stories do contain details that you may find upsetting. So after John's story, we're now going on to the next activity. So what it says is it's going to be a small group activity when we're in class. But before that, I would suggest that what we do is we discuss the sharing of the stories. I'll ask you to decide on sharing stories about our lives and experiences can mean people get to know who we are. The more we communicate with and get to know each other, the less likely it is that people will move towards extreme ideologies. So what we want to do is we want to be able to talk about, Is your view of extremism still the same after hearing these stories? If it hasn't changed, why do you think that is? So you do need to consider what you started off thinking about and where you are now, and be quite open and honest with yourself. You don't have to voice everything that you find out about yourself, but it is worth getting to know yourself, because when you look at yourself and you reflect on your feelings and your knowledge and your understanding, you're in a much better position to think about, do you need to take steps forward in a certain direction, or are you able to help support somebody else to take those right steps? Number 2, has it made you more aware of what extremism is and who can be affected by it? Has it changed your idea about what extremism is? What did you think extremism was at the beginning in comparison to now? Who might be involved in extremism? Number 3, what has it made you think about the power of storytelling? So is it worth doing? Was this an effective use of our tutorial time? And 4, based on their stories, do you think the benefits of sharing stories outweigh the risks? If not, why not? So again, I'd like us to be able to get at the point whereby we can discuss this and we can really pick out the points and find out what you think, because either this will help us in some way or we'll have to find better ways. So I would suggest that you take down some notes beforehand, before you come and attend the session for it. Otherwise, you're not going to get the full impact of the sessions. Finally, we've got the same links as we did last week, and I will again share them in the description section so that you can get all the information you need. However, the links to the other videos will be there, and it will be under slide 1, slide 2, and so on. Okay? And I will see you next week. Thank you very much.